Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining for our fifth webinar focused on COVID-19 challenges and how leaders can navigate through these challenges. This webinar series is about helping leaders to navigate some of the key challenges coming their way. So this is the fifth webinar, as I mentioned earlier. We have got Preetha from India. He is a sales leadership coach and also expert around leadership management who does quite a lot of work in the region. So she was recently actually in March, February and March, she was here in Colombo. She delivered a session around sales leadership. So this is a bit of an extension of that session, but we are mainly focusing on how sales leaders can navigate through these challenges when the remote working is taking place and there is a lot of crisis around and most of the businesses are closed and there is a lockdown around the corner. So and how sales leaders can motivate teams, and also what are the some of the tools that you can use in terms of getting best out of this situation as much as possible. So without a further ado, let me invite Preetha to take you through the presentation. I hope you will have a lot of insights to take out of the session. Thank you, Preetha.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So awesome sales teams aren't only found in office cubicles. Fortunately, technology makes remote work more accessible. Now, when we say office, it can encompass different countries and time zones. Stanford University research study found that employees are 13% more productive when working remotely. However, managing a remote sales team isn't easy, and I am assuming that all of us are experiencing it currently. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Preetha Dubey, and I am a sales coach and the founder of Success Vitamin, a training and coaching firm based out of India and operating in the whole of South Asia. And today, I welcome you all to this evening webinar on remote leadership. Basically, managing our sales team during this pandemic when everybody is working from home. And how do we as sales leaders manage this team from remote and get the desired performance standards? Now, when we are managing a team remotely, let us understand something, that the basic principles of sales management still apply. But when problems occur, it's not as simple. Managing remote sales teams create unique challenges. Now, I'm sure each one of us who have joined us here are having their own challenges, and you probably are looking forward to getting the answers to most of your challenges. We would be coming to these challenges. Before we proceed further into this webinar, let me just take you through the certain hygiene factors of how are we going to go about this webinar. Now, you all are on mute, so I can't hear you say anything. And if you have anything to say, there is a chat section. You may write your comments or whatever you have to say in the chat section. Now, there is going to be a question answer session as well towards the end. So what we would be doing at the start is that I would request you to just keep those questions to yourself. And towards the end, when we are opening it up, you may start typing in your questions in the chat section. If you put a question mark in the chat, the system here will pick it up as a question, and I will be able to then identify it as a question and therefore answer it. Otherwise, it may come to me as a comment and I may not be able to pick it up as a question. At the same time, we may not have a lot of time to answer all the questions. Hence, I will pick up a few questions, and a few could be in the parking lot, which I would try and answer and email it to each one of you. Now, as we said that managing remote sales teams, it creates unique challenges. So let us first take a look at what are certain challenges, the common challenges that people have shared with me so far. I'm sure each one of us has various different kinds of challenges, but these are a few common challenges that has come up to me. I hope you are able to see the slides here. Now, a few of the challenges that people have shared relates to communication, because as we know, we are remote, sitting quite afar from each other. And one of the most important element of communication, that is the visual communication, that is our body language, reading the facial expressions or the body gestures and the mannerisms, that part is missing. So it creates sometimes misunderstandings because the communication is not as smooth as it is otherwise when we are face to face. Also, if there is any problem or an issue, we can't just walk up to the bay and get the clarity or give the clarity face to face. So it creates a little bit of problem, therefore. Sometimes when we are working remote, there could be, if there is a lack of trust, it may lead to collaborations not happening very seamlessly or as we would have expected. And also we must remember that our sales team are used to a very dynamic life of going out, meeting new customers every day, facing challenges, and being out on the field. Work from home may therefore lead to disengagement and at times anxiety. And I'm sure when we started this work from home thing some time back before the lockdown, we would have gone through all those feelings of anxiety. Probably now we are in a better position to accept this lockdown, and many of us would have already found a solution to work around this isolation that we have been put into. In spite of these challenges, yet there are companies which are delivering stellar results with the remote sales team. What are they doing right? How they are managing it is something, and what we can learn from that is something that we are going to cover in the next few slides. Before we get into the methods and the tools and how we can overcome the challenges of managing a sales team from remote, let us first understand the world we are in. This world that we are in is called a VUCA world. I'm sure most of us would have heard this word a lot, and especially in today's time, it is very, very popular now. It's being used quite often. Now, what's a VUCA world? Now, VUCA, as the word, stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And all of us would agree that we are currently indeed living in a VUCA world. Now, while we are living in this VUCA world as leaders, we have to question ourselves two things. How much do we know about the situation? And second is, how well can we predict the results of our actions? These two questions we need to keep asking ourselves continuously so that we are able to adapt to this VUCA world and find a direction, find a way out. So we need to constantly ask ourselves, what am I experiencing at this moment? So what does this mean for me in this context? Now what can I do to make a positive contribution? Now, these are the three things as leaders we need to constantly be asking ourselves. What am I experiencing at this moment? Am I experiencing anxiety? Am I nervous? Am I fearful, or am I confident? So what does this mean for me in this context of this pandemic? What does this feeling mean for me? And now what can I do to make a positive contribution? When the demands are constantly there for us, so how do we deal with this VUCA world, in this VUCA world? Now, volatility may result in risks and instability. So the demand from us as leaders is to have a vision. The vision to take action, to probe changes, then only we'll be able to overcome the challenges of volatility. Uncertainty effects in direction paralysis. There's so many unknowns, so much of unknowns that sometimes we don't know in which direction we need to go. So the demand from us as leaders here is a wider understanding of different perspectives. Complexities may result in unproductive dualities. So as leaders, we need to have clarity. Clarity so that we are having the right focus, so that we are flexible and we are creative. Ambiguity induces doubt and distrust, lapses in decision making, and it hurts innovation. So therefore, the need of the hour for all of us is agility. And we all should, right now, we would have heard this term a lot of times before, agile leadership. Now is the time to exhibit the agile leadership traits by all of us. Now, when we are talking about agile leadership phase, let's start with the first things first, and that is the agile leader's mindset. The agile leader recognizes that the management imperative has shifted. And how has it shifted? It has basically shifted from predict and plan to sense and respond mindset. Now, what happens when we are in a predict and plan mindset? Now, usually, that is, you can say it's kind of the traditional mindset. In a predict and plan mindset, a leader would assume that there is a lot of predictability in the market. I can see in the future, and I know because there is a set standards, and my business and my processes would work in a standard way. And since there is a predictability, so the leaders, they will plan most big things ahead of time. They would also make most of their decisions ahead of time. And what they also do is they will break down the large institutional initiatives into smaller pieces. Like we see that we have created these different teams who work on smaller responsibility areas. So they work either in department forms or in team forms, and they work in silos. The leaders, the predict and plan leaders, will also create these organizational and management systems and processes and structures that operationalize and enable these assumptions and activities, the assumptions of we can predict things. Now, when we talk about being agile and shifting the mindset to sense and respond, what we are talking about is a mindset of a leader who would plan and strategize as they go, set things up to increase the learning, then adjust their thinking, the planning, and action based on that learning. Make decisions quickly and with limited information. These leaders will have a high degree of flexibility in how they structure and organize and coordinate and execute the work. In today's world, this flexibility is very, very critical, and we will know how in the later slides. The agile leader also knows how to give and receive useful feedback, and each one of us will have to depend a lot on feedback in this situation. And they make things visible and transparent. Now, as Simon Sinek, we all know who he is. So let us remember this quote from him when he says that when we tell people to do their jobs, we get workers. When we trust people to get the job done, we get leaders. The world is too complex for one leader, and leadership is too important to be done by one person. Without action, we have only words. So take action now and become a leader. This is what Simon had said. So what we are talking about is moving away from a traditional team and moving to an agile team. Now, as we can see in the slide, the differences are quite understandable. They are very clear. What's the difference between having a traditional team versus having agile teams? In agile teams, we get a self-organized team with people working towards a common goal who coordinate their work among themselves and they collaborate. So, having understood that the need of the hour for all of us is to be agile and to show agility, many firms have gone out of their usual to not only tackle this growing health crisis, but also to keep their business afloat. Some sectors which have seen higher demand ever since the virus outbreak are pharmaceuticals, FMCG, OTT platforms, and e-commerce. Let's explore a few ways to lead your remote sales team to more closed deal. So how do we begin? The number one thing that we need to do is to set clear expectations. A Gallup poll of German workers found that when a manager sets clear priorities for their employees, about 38% of workers feel engaged and will strive to increase their work performance. So when setting expectations, encourage sales employees to meet higher performance levels. Establish clear expectations for your remote team. It provides everyone a set standard to maintain. The benchmark should include sales objectives, specific online procedures when working on leads, and tips for managing time more efficiently. Let's understand, when we are at home, there is a possibility of getting carried away, getting distracted. So while we are setting up the expectations, we need to keep in mind these objectives as well. Sales managers must be willing to hop on Skype call with their remote team, sales team, to discuss these expectations, and then also provide a detailed report to each employee about their specific tasks and the desired performance goals. Similar to in-person communication, go over the ground rules on how to find leads, what to do when cold calling the prospects, when to perform follow-up work, how to close the deal, and the procedures on what to do if they experience any problems. Don't let your sales team wander in the cyberspace. Remote work requires expectations too. So the first aspect should be, don't just leave them. Okay, so what if we are sales from home? Do the way you want to do. As leaders, we need to be in control, and therefore we need to set the expectations. When we have set the expectations, we need to understand that implementing the processes are also very, very important. Mr. Liam Martin, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Time Doctor. This is a company with 100% remote team of 80 plus people distributed across 4 continents. And he says that processes are by far the most important thing you can possibly implement when managing a remote sales team. Procedures on lead generation, how to do a demo, negotiations, or close a deal, and customer successes, processes on all these things are all critical to systematize and digitize to make a remote sales team successful. So the first thing we as leaders have to do is create these processes. We need to create the processes and share with our sales team. Put them up on a shared folder so that everybody can access these processes and they know how these tasks have to be done. At the same time, how do you get your salespeople to actually follow those processes? How can you make sure that these processes that you have worked so hard in formatting and designing and creating and then uploading it on the shared drive does not just stay on the shared drive and the team is actually using it? So what we can do basically is we can create templates of these tasks and these processes, and such as sending a cold email. There could be a template for that. Creating a proposal, a template. Presenting a demo, and so on. So when all these recurring activities that our sales team needs to do, all the recurring activities, we create template for the recurring activities. Now, when all these recurring activities are visible in your project management tool, it saves you the pain of micromanaging your team to check if they are following the processes. Now, if you already have a project management tool, very good. It is going to save you a lot of time and energy. If you don't, you may want to look at a project management tool, but try and use a very powerful project management tool that saves you the pain of micromanagement. There are some examples given here in the slides. These are not my recommendations. These are basically, if you do a research on Google, you will probably find out these names. I've just given you a few names. You may choose the best project management tool that suits your purpose. Now, one process that many successful remote teams follow is to set up an accountability routine. This helps team members be on the same page on project targets, as well as keep everyone accountable to everyone else. And accountability ensures that the teams reach their targets on time. So in order to foster accountability, once a week, all team members post an update on what leads they would be following up next week and what targets they have already met. So this is a way of encouraging each other and also making others be accountable. Now, once we have implemented the processes and we have also ensured that they are not only created but also followed, the next step is to invest in resources that everyone can use. Now, I am sure this is true with your organizations also, that most companies work in the cloud. The storage providers like Google or Box or OneDrive, they allow your employees to log in securely and view any data. Use of cloud-based storage system means the workers can access company information from their personal computer at home or even from their smartphones. The another resource other than the cloud-based storage systems, which makes it easy for us to access, is CRM. A few of you would already be having a CRM, whether in-house built or purchased from outside. Um, the benefits of CRM is that it helps in building lasting customer relationships, streamlining and automating the processes, creating better collaboration and communication, better pipeline management, and increased revenues. So while if you do not already have a CRM, when you are looking for a CRM, try and look for a CRM that is not very tedious. One of the things that our salespeople dislike is getting into something which is very, very tedious. Try and see that there is a CRM that's where it is easy to input data and it is easy to get reports. And there are also these networking tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Engagio, etc., which helps in prospecting, connecting with our prospects and sending emails, and also in lead generation. And these tools are collaboration tools, so you would at any time know the emails that have been sent and you will get the analytics as well. And of course, the most important aspect in remote, since we cannot walk up and have the face-to-face communication, is to definitely have a very good communication tool. We can either use a Skype or a Zoom or a GoToMeeting, Google Hangout, Slack, etc. These tools help in collaboration. Slack is a very, very commonly used tool when we need to collaborate and work together. If you go, you will find a lot of features that are really going to help. I would also recommend and investing in a time tracker tool. As I said, time management is a bit of a challenge when we are at home. So any time tracker tool, it helps the teams maintain consistent work hours. After all, distractions at home are one of the biggest challenges for remote employees. So these are a few examples of again, I would say the names that I have mentioned here are just for us to understand what types of tools are available. You may do your research and find the right technology. But I would like to reiterate that when we are working remote, so far away from each other, we really can't see. We have to invest in technology. Technology definitely comes to our savior at that point of time. Once we know that in the investments that we need to do on the resources, now comes to build relationship. Trust is a very, very important aspect, and it is irrespective of whether we are working from home or we are face to face. We all understand as leaders that how important building trust is. In 2013, a Harvard Business Review report demonstrated that people avoid helping others when they lack trust in their team members or with managers. They say if you don't think your actions will be rewarded or reciprocated, why make the effort at all? So communication is the key to building trust. You've heard that before, but it becomes more important in remote teams. So as sales managers, we should plan our working schedule in a way that it overlaps a majority of our team members. This way, if any issues or question arise, we can respond immediately. we must definitely avoid micromanagement. While this is a challenge even in a typical office setup, the negative effects of micromanagement also expand to remote teams. As a manager, your communication isn't always immediate, unlike when we are in the office. And also, you cannot interpret the team members' body language and mannerisms. So, micromanagement itself can become self-defeating for a remote sales team. A little bit of flexibility and provide a little bit of freedom and authority so that they work with accountability. As long as they are closing the deals, I believe a little bit of flexibility could be given to them. Also, in order to build that trust, especially when we are sitting quite far and we can't see each other, is to promote teamwork. A team that does not trust each other is unlikely to collaborate or help each other. Therefore, you should take steps to promote effective teamwork among your remote employees, such as give the right mix of individual versus team recognition, take regular feedback, clarify the roles in the sales process, encourage your team members to not only talk with you frequently, but also among themselves, and so on. One advice I would like to give is hop on a video call through Skype or Slack or whatever, rather than having a back and forth conversation over an email or a chat. As much as possible, try to get on a video call. Deploy the internal communication tools that we just spoke about some time back. So once we have understood that building trust is important, we need to next promote employee engagement. Low levels of employee engagement is bad for your bottom line. And in remote teams where human contact is minimal, it's easy for engagement to slip. That's why it's vital for you to take proactive steps to motivate people and mitigate factors that frustrate your employees. So when you're trying to improve employee engagement, one way to reduce frustration would be to make it easier for people to do their jobs. For instance, I have already said this before, one of the activities that salespeople hate or find it very boring is prospecting. Now, use a good prospecting tool that will eliminate the pain of prospecting for leads and finding the accurate emails or contact details. Now, that makes their life easy. So they remain engaged while they are working from home. We also draw our motivation from others. The more accomplishments you share, the more enthused each salesperson will feel to deliver big wins. So these regular video calls to share accomplishments not only stimulate people, they are also great for brainstorming about strategies or complex sales challenges. So when we are, it would be a good practice to hold a weekly video call where we are sharing about how someone closed uh, a few high ticket deals in 1 week, or what tactic was used by somebody else to convert a reluctant buyer. Also, we would know that when we are in office setup, we take our water cooler moments, or we can say the tea breaks. What basically we do during this time, we refresh and energize ourselves. Now, we need to encourage these water cooler moments also for our remote workers, since they lack those moments when they are sitting at home. So we can encourage these discussions, the water cooler moment discussions, on Slack or on Google Hangouts, whatever internal communication tool that we are using, around everyday topic, like, for example, what are the latest COVID-19 updates, or what is that latest trending web series that they are watching on Netflix. So we could always be, we should encourage these discussions also. It builds the engagement level of our employees. So from the once we have done these few steps, we need to also remember that when we are away from our team and we are unable to see what our team is doing and how they are doing, as a leader, it is very, very important for us to also be coaching the team. Now, there are various various types of coaching that we can do. One of the sales coaching is called opportunity coaching. Now, what is an opportunity coaching? So you can use a CRM or the sales reports that you use to examine the pipeline. And then when we have examined the pipeline, we need to have a one-on-one conversation with each salesperson, review their individual pipeline, and look for opportunities that may not have a clear next step, or maybe stalled in a certain stage. It's like stalled there. It's not moving forward. Check with them, ask a few questions here. Certain basic questions needs to be asked to these people, and these questions are basically to understand how much information they have on each of their prospect. Information about their business needs, their pain area, the problem statement, the unique value that the salesperson thinks that he or she can add to this prospect. Have they inquired about the BANT? BANT, or BANT, stands for budget, authority, need, and timeline. As a salesperson, we need to have this information: how much budget they are planning. The person whom I'm talking to, is this person the authority, the decision maker, or who is the decision maker? What are the needs that they have, explicit and implicit, and in how much timeline they are looking to solve their problem? So if we know these, if we ask these kind of questions, this will, by the answers that our salespeople are giving us, this will tell us about their investment behind each prospect and their willingness to close a deal So, as much as possible, spend your time in analyzing the CRMs so that we understand that how much opportunity are we following up with, and what all opportunities are probably going in the lost direction. Another aspect for us on coaching is telework. Now, as I had mentioned earlier also, the team is not used to working from home and rather selling from home. And selling over the phone without getting to meet the prospect or the client face to face. Now, we all know that most of the salespeople are very confident when they're made to sit across the table. It's very easy then to convince the customer, to present my solution, to handle the objections. But things become equally difficult when we are doing the same over phone or use over a technology. So train them on the telework do's and don'ts, the science of how to do the sales, and also the art of doing the sales. For example, one of the things that I tell all my salespeople who are working from home or selling from home is that whenever you're talking to a client, stand up and talk. The reason I say stand up and talk is because when we are standing up, we sound very energetic. And the more energy we bring in our communication, the more passionate we are towards the entire sales pitch. So these are certain, so the art of selling from home, there are a lot of finer nuances that they need to follow. It is not the same as selling face to face. So train them on that. Also, train them on the communication channels. You must start with the boot camp. There should be a boot camp arranged by you where you introduce them to the useful technology and also teach them how to use the technology, how to send a proposal through this technology, how to send a cold email through this technology. When do you receive? How do you do the follow up? How do you fill in the data? How do you input the data? How do you get the output? All these, the use of technology has to be taught. So I would suggest conduct a boot camp and teach them on how to use the technology. The teleworking is a very different style of working, and therefore it needs to be handled differently. The best tool that is available to any salesperson or a sales manager is a CRM. I personally love a CRM tool. For a simple reason that the analytics that it provides, the kind of data and the kind of information that I can get about my team from a CRM tool is mind-blowing. And it helps in conversion coaching, which could also be known as a skill coaching. Almost all the CRM tools produce these conversion reports. That is how the salesperson is faring at each step of the sales funnel. This tells us the strengths and the weaknesses of our team. From this, when we have analyzed the data and how they are at each of the sales funnel, we also identify the gaps. And then we can accordingly coach them to bridge those gaps. An important aspect here to keep in mind is not to do the sales call for them. Don't just jump in, oh, I have to do my number, so give it to me, give me the number of your client. I'm only going to call up and do it. You just be on the line. Don't do that for them. Then it is not coaching them. Follow, and also when you are observing. So if you are asking them to do the sales call and you're on the phone, listening to how they are doing the sales call, don't after the sales call has been done, don't give them the things that they have done wrong. Use the structure of giving a constructive feedback. So follow it. Follow the structure of constructive feedback. Don't just say, "Oh, you did not did this right. This is where you made a mistake." This is going to create a lot of disengagement in them. Rather, highlight what they did good and what could be, or what you observed are the areas of improvement. So we need to give a constructive feedback in a way that encourages them to work on their areas of improvement and not make them feel dejected. Setting targets or the expectations at the beginning, like we said, help them follow this sales process. So when we are setting the expectations, make sure we give them targets, and this is not only a target what we are trying to achieve at the end, at the result, so many crores of business. No, when we are setting up targets, for them to understand clearly how they are working, we need to also set these targets for each step of the sales funnel. Let them know, I want you to call these many prospects. I want these many prospects to be converted to active leads. So like that, give them those expected conversion ratios and give them a target that they need to follow. So they will also know how much time they need to invest and to be able to be successful. So in conclusion, I would say that set your remote sales team up for success. Develop a work setting that will improve your sales pipeline, and set the expectations right at the start. Implement processes that will make it easy for them. Invest in resources that again makes their work easier and helps in collaboration. Build trust so that you're able to also promote employee engagement, and invest your time in coaching them. Do this well, and you will be able to close more deals with an engaged, empowered, and effective remote sales team. Now, before I'm going to now open the forum for question and answers. If you have questions, you may start putting them up on the chat section. You would see at the bottom there is a place where you have to type your message, and on top of that you would also see apart from the message where there's a question mark. If you go to the question mark segment and type, it will automatically come to me as a question. Now, while you are sending me your questions, I'm going to leave you with a video. This would also further give you some idea on how to manage a remote sales team. This is a very, very interesting video, and it also kind of covers a lot of things that we discussed. So please enjoy this video while I collect all your questions.
Welcome to SRG Insights, where we answer your questions about sales, sales management, and sales training. And today's question is,
how do you manage a sales team if you don't all work in the same area?
And, you know, it's a really good question about how do you manage a remote sales team. And I think that's something sales managers have struggled with for years. And it reminds me of a blog post that I published earlier this week on the use of sales enablement technology, which I'm a huge proponent of. And I love the idea of having more analytics. And, you know, there's no shortage of analytics through your CRM system. systems. But I think it also poses a risk for sales managers in that they can become so reliant on the analytics that they become somewhat of what I would call an armchair quarterback and really aren't necessarily making the connection they need to with the members of their sales team. When we think about the overall objective of a sales manager, it really comes down to three key skills: the ability to manage, coach, and lead their sales team. And all those, by their very nature, are social. So what we want to do is think about some techniques you can use that would allow you to better manage a remote team, coach a remote team, and lead a remote team. Let me start with managing performance. So I think there's this notion out there that a lot of sales managers, if you have a remote salesperson, you really need to just focus on the results, and if they're hitting their results, then you're fine. And I can understand that rationale, but I actually think that logic is flawed because the results are backwards looking in nature, and that logic only works until such time as if and when they miss the results, and then all of a sudden you're kind of behind the game. So we really want to emphasize, and particularly important with remote salespeople, is to communicate clearly. So what is the result that you expect? What actions do you want them to take that lead to that result? For example, the result may actually be the achievement of a sales quota, but you may have an expectation on going on so many in-person calls, sending out proposals, new account penetration, all things that can lead to achieving those sales results. So as a remote manager, you really want to focus on not only the results, but also the underlying behaviors that drive the results. And I think with a veteran team, that could come across almost as micromanaging. So you want to be very skillful and artful in how you do that. You don't necessarily need to say, well, let me understand, how many sales calls you went out on last week. That information should be available to you through either the CRM or a sales report. What you want to focus on is a conversation. Tell me a little bit about who you visited last week. How did those calls go? Were there clear action items? And then if there aren't clear action items, that's an opportunity for you to coach and really contribute value in terms of helping them identify how they could advance opportunities. Which brings me to the next area of coaching, and specifically opportunity coaching, which again uses that technology, the CRM system, to examine the pipeline, and then allows you to have a one-on-one conversation with each salesperson, take a look at their individual pipeline, and then take a look at those opportunities as you're discussing that may not have a clear next step or may be stalled in one particular stage. And then really you can start to ask some deal coaching questions that relate to how are you going to advance those opportunities. And here's 5 deal coaching questions that we would encourage you to ask. So the first of those questions is, what does a customer's business need? So if the salesperson can't clearly articulate the business need, there clearly is more work on their part to ask questions and really identify priorities. What's the unique value that we bring to that customer? Can they really articulate the value proposition and how it ties to those needs? Who are the decision makers and who are the key influencers? Do they really have an understanding? Have they mapped the organization to really make sure you're in a position to reach all the people necessary to get to a positive outcome? Who's your competition? Who are we competing against? And ultimately, the 5th question, why are we going to win? What are our strengths relative to the competition? And what are our win themes? And that also involves confidence in the salesperson. And your job as a manager to build that confidence as they pursue opportunities. There's another type of coaching, though, as well that's at least as important. That's skills coaching. And it's the job of every manager to help their salespeople improve selling skills. And that does require some time in the field, but a lot of that planning can actually happen in advance. So you can do an assessment of those skills, maybe have the salesperson do a self-assessment, and develop a coaching plan focused on 1 or 2 key selling skills that you're going to focus on that quarter. And then with that limited time you have with the salesperson in the field, go out and observe calls. And I use the word observe intentionally because many managers can't resist the temptation when they go out on a call to actually start running the call. And it may be that as a manager, you're in a better position to close that business, but you have to be cognizant, especially with remote salespeople, that they're on sales calls all the time where you're not present. So you have to resist that temptation to jump in and really observe and focus on the key skills that you're going to work on. And then following that call, you want to debrief with the salesperson. And again, the temptation may be to share with them what didn't go as well as you like. But if that coaching is not a positive experience, they're going to tune you out. They may not even schedule you to go on additional calls next time you come out to visit. So make sure you're sharing with them something positive that you've seen on that call, getting their thoughts first as to how the call went, where the areas for improvement are, and then adding your advice as a coach as to how they may do it differently or better in the future. So again, sales coaching is really critical. And then that leads to the third responsibility of a manager. So you're managing your team, you're coaching to your team, but you also need to lead and inspire. And if your salespeople are in the same office, that's a little bit easier because you can walk the hallways and you can start to have hallway conversations and share with them what's going on in the company and get their input and also understand their concerns. But it's even more important with your salespeople that are kind of disconnected from your office. So what I like to recommend, again, using technology, is a video call or a Skype call where you can actually see the facial expressions, see the energy level, and use that opportunity to share and update them on what's going on in the company, what's going on with your products, what's going on in the industry. Ask them for their input, get their thoughts so you really know what's going on in their mind, and try to understand if there's any underlying concerns. And that's a great job of any leaders to really make a personal connection. And again, a Skype call is a much better way to do that. Too many managers and too many of us altogether get caught up in texts and email, and we lose all of the personal interaction that is so essential to the art of sales and sales management. So I hope these techniques that I've shared with you are helpful in terms of managing a remote sales team. Again, we're huge believers in technology, CRM, video conferencing, social networks, all really now foundational to sales and sales management, but they're not a replacement for the personal interaction necessary to manage, coach, and lead your teams. Thank you.
So I believe this particular video would have helped you in understanding how we need to manage. Also, I have received a question I'd like to answer. Is one question which says that to get best resources, what qualities should we seek? Yes. Here I am assuming you mean that by resources, you mean the sales team, to hire them. What qualities should we seek? The sales qualities in a person is something that depends a lot on the kind of selling the person has to do. In a B2B scenario, the requirement is different. If you are in FMCG, the qualities would be different. If you are in retail, the qualities would be different. At the same time, there are a few common qualities. And one of the aspects that you should try and look for when you are hiring through certain situation-based questions is whether the person is goal-oriented or not. We all require people to immediately start delivering. And if a person is goal-oriented, the person will be able to grasp the things pretty fast and will be also able to produce results pretty fast. Try and see if the person has ambition, a personal motivation. Because if the person has a personal motivation, he or she would also have a drive to do better, to achieve that personal motivation. He or she should be creative. When I say creative, I mean that sometimes it so happens that most of the salespeople follow a one set process of, say, prospecting. Finding out people, look at the yellow pages, look at certain lists, or go through the ads that are coming out in the paper and only call them. Creative sales guys will use a lot of creative techniques to prospect. And the sales funnel is such that the smarter a person works, the better utilization of sales funnel he or she would be able to do. And also look for problem solving and analytical skills in the person, because if you are willing to leave the person with some authority, the person should have certain analytical and problem solving skills. So look for certain analytical and problem solving skills also in that person. I do not really believe in the salesperson to be very aggressive, because the world has changed, and instead of aggressive, a more collaborative, a person who has a lot of win-win approach, a very positive attitude, is someone who would be more successful than a person who is very aggressive. So try and look for these elements. Other certain qualities depend a lot on the kind of business he or she would be in. We have one more question here, I think, which is in a B2B context, how best do you suggest the B2B sales team approach existing and potential clients for new business leads opportunities given the current lockdown in most countries? As I said earlier also, there are a few sectors who have seen a surge in their demand, like FMCG. The technology sector is doing very good. E-commerce sectors are doing very good. The OTT sectors are doing very good. There is a demand. The pharmaceutical sectors have a demand. Now, if your business does not fall in these sectors, and unfortunately, if it falls in certain sector which is has been affected by this lockdown, then that would mean that even your client, the business client, is unable to do business currently, is unable to get their revenues. So one of the important aspect here to remember is to build relationship, whether it's with the prospect client or with an existing one. Maintain the relationship. This is one thing that is going to yield the result when the lockdown is over. Maintain relationship and try and understand the business model of the customer, whether existing or an opportunity. Understand the business model and try and see if there is any way you can help them in their business through your connects, through your through customers whom you know. Because, for example, you are in a B2B kind of a segment, you will know certain segments of certain customers in certain sectors. So one customer in one sector could probably be a supplier or a customer to another customer of yours who belongs to another sector. So this person could probably be a raw material provider to this person. So if you can connect these two, try and build those connections among your customers. The more we help them around during this time, the more we will be able to yield goodwill and business results after the lockdown is over. So focus a lot on building relationships and finding their needs and trying to create some value for them. They are going to always remember you for adding value to their businesses. So I believe we do not have any more questions. So, okay, no, we have one more question, and also we have, I don't see questions. So we have also kind of overshot the time of 1 hour. I thank you all. If there are questions, please do write in, and I will try to help you out with the answers if I have. And if I don't have, I will definitely share with you the link or articles or some reviews or insights that will help you find that answer. So I thank you all for joining in.